The Last Jedi came out 7 years ago on December 15th. I want to kind of look back at that for a bit and just talk about what this movie meant to the franchise of Star Wars and to the fans in general. At the time, the movie was very divisive, and to me, this was the beginning of the end as far as the regular casual audience was concerned. Obviously, the hardcore lore people were upset when Disney got rid of the EU. Some people didn't like the Clone Wars, some people didn't like Rebels. You had all kinds of different points for different people. The Force Awakens overall was pretty well received, and this movie is the one where the sentiment turned. Now, obviously, a bad movie is not a huge deal. The prequel trilogy has plenty of its own issues, obviously, but I think what makes The Last Jedi special is certainly nothing good. But to me, this was the first time that a Star Wars movie became fully ingrained in the meta and the culture war. This is when Disney turned on the audience. They thought they were siding with the majority of the audience. They were not. As we've seen from The Rise of Skywalker's much lower box office, they haven't made a movie since, which I think speaks volumes. The amount of cultural impact the Disney Plus shows have had has been almost irrelevant. Baby Yoda is pretty much it. And it was also at this point that Disney publicly took a side politically and who they're going to align with ideologically. Since then, we've seen all kinds of prominent women and minorities in Star Wars. No one gives a shit about that, other than the fact that every time they write some dog shit show, they come out and call the fans racist and sexist and blah, blah, blah. And the reality is, Star Wars has always been diverse. It's always been relatively progressive. It had a universal message that appealed to hundreds of millions of people. It was famous for 40 years, just based on 6 movies in that time. Everything that Disney has done since then has devalued the franchise, has made it less popular, has made it more irrelevant. At no point have they just decided to focus on the story, focus on the characters, respect the established lore and the canon that people already liked. Any kind of criticism comes out, they attack the fans. So to me, that's what The Last Jedi symbolizes for the Star Wars franchise, was the beginning of this mindset, where they thought they could win by shitting all over the fans and attacking them, and they've been proven wrong time and time again. I mean, we've seen just the slowly depreciating views that the Disney Plus shows get. Those numbers are probably fudged anyway, so I think the viewership is actually even worse than it appears to be. But the only show that had an increase in viewership at any point was The Mandalorian. Part of that was because the platform expanded, part of it was Baby Yoda, and Andor. Andor was never super popular, but because it was a good show and well executed, even though it wasn't the most exciting at times, it ended up with a pretty long shelf life, and we're going to get a season 2. Since then, we've seen Ahsoka's viewership match Andor's, but with way less positive reception. We've seen The Acolyte get canceled almost immediately as soon as it ended, and The Acolyte really only succeeded in making it okay to just openly mock Star Wars. Then you had stuff like The Mandalorian Season 3, where they brought in Jack Black and Lizzo. Solo bombed after The Last Jedi came out. I believe that was directly related. And then The Rise of Skywalker made half of what The Force Awakens did, and probably lost money, or maybe broke even. The Last Jedi as a movie really embraced this trope that we see now in everything, where they bring back a beloved character, make them an old, miserable sack of shit, embarrass and humiliate them, and then kill them off, and then don't understand why the fans don't like it and aren't receptive. This is how they treated Luke. This is how Indiana Jones got treated. Arguably, Last of Us 2 did a similar thing to Joel. And we just see this time and time again, where they take the beloved characters, shit all over them, give us lame new characters, and then get mad when no one gives a fuck about them. It's actually kind of impressive that The Last Jedi manages to embody pretty much everything that I hate with this cultural push in the meta in our entertainment. All they had to do was have Luke be cool, train Rey, have Leia and her companions be competent leaders, instead of a dumbass plan that makes no fucking sense, that breaks all of the canon, that they had to try to justify with a one-liner in episode 9. And what people really seem to miss when you talk about these kind of meta criticisms and the decision making that goes into these movies is it's never just about replacing a man with a woman or a white person with a black person or whatever. The goal at that point is clearly not to tell a good story, it's to push a certain ideology. And when you do that, the story is going to suffer. In the Kenobi show, we find out inadvertently that he doesn't give a fuck about Luke apparently because he runs off on an adventure with Leia and almost gets Luke killed. He lets Leia drag him around by the nose when she's 10 years old, making him a total buffoon. And then the other part of the show focuses on making Reva, who's a vicious murderer, seem like she's in the right and a good person, while also surviving getting stabbed not once, but twice by Darth Vader. And in the meantime, she inspired his idea in the original movies to let the rebels go and put a tracker on them. It's never enough to just transition from the old characters that you love into new younger ones who should have their own story and their own background and their own interest. They always have to do everything the originals did, but better, or first, or it's a retcon. And The Last Jedi does all of this to the point where Mark Hamill, who's the most important hero in the franchise, comes out and says, "That's not my Luke Skywalker. That must be Jake Skywalker." Even the people making the movie see how disrespectful it is to the characters. And I don't want to just keep ranting too long, because I just kind of wanted to talk about The Last Jedi and really what it meant, I think, to the Star Wars brand and kind of the culture as a whole. But the only thing I would say is this. If you defend The Last Jedi and the choices made in that movie, if you were given the sequel trilogy, would you have ever written Luke Skywalker that way? Would you have ever had Han Solo turn into a deadbeat dad who gets murdered by his own son? Would you have ever had someone pick up a lightsaber for the first time and beat a trained Sith Lord? I mean, these are all just very basic things that anyone that actually loves Star Wars, I don't believe would ever do. I mean, if you really love Star Wars and telling a good story is your priority, how could it not be to take care of the characters, to take care of the world? Any kind of themes and messaging would probably be like 10th on most people's list. And the fact that The Last Jedi and all the installations after prioritized it just epitomizes everything wrong with Hollywood right now and why they're just fucking dropping bomb after bomb in the theaters. And I'm not just limiting that to Star Wars. It applies to Marvel. I've heard terrible things about Wheel of Time. I just got done shitting all over the War of the Rohirrim. It's every franchise is just infested by these fucking losers who don't care about the intellectual property that they get to work on, who tens of millions of people would give their left fucking nut to be able to write a script for or to have any part of. So fuck those people. Fuck Disney. Until they decide to actually care about the story and stop blaming the fans, they can go suck a big fat dick. And that's what The Last Jedi means to me. I'm going to leave it there for this one. This was just kind of a rant, but I wanted to at least talk about it because my channel didn't exist until after Last Jedi came out. If you're still here, let me know what The Last Jedi means to you. I try to respond to all the comments that aren't just insults. Like and subscribe and all that shit. Thanks. See ya.